What's up everyone, and welcome back to the Bold and the Beautiful 24 official channel. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button today. Let's get started. Finn begins an investigation because he believes Grace is lying. While Bill Spencer's money addresses a debt issue, the Bold and the Beautiful reveals that John Finn Finnegan will have suspicions that Grace Buckingham is lying. Once Grace gets settled in her office at the hospital, she'll look at some banking info on her phone. Grace will presumably ensure that Bill's money reaches the unknown caller because she will receive confirmation that $1 million has been transferred. Someone has clearly been impatient with Grace, who may have inherited her ex-husband's debts after Reese Buckingham went to prison. Grace seems stressed to the max and wouldn't be jeopardizing her career without a good reason. It seems likely that Paris Buckingham and Zoe Buckingham have been threatened over this debt situation. Grace was probably desperate to pay this person off and get rid of the danger to her daughters. Of course, that doesn't mean Grace deserves a pass for all the manipulation she's resorted to. Bill, Liam Spencer, Hope Spencer, and Steffi Forrester are all thrilled over the amazing results of Liam's experimental procedure. Although Finn is somewhat pleased, he is also extremely perplexed as to how this is even possible. Furthermore, Finn doesn't get why Grace handled all this in such a shady way, so B&B say he's going to launch an investigation. Finn may barge in Grace's office with questions soon enough, and Bridget Forrester could have questions of her own since she's also invested in Liam's case. When Grace is put under questioning, she may experience anxiety and the sense that she is being spied on. Grace might try to convince Finn to accept Liam's miracle and move on, but he won't rest until he knows everything. Finn will feel like Grace is lying and may fear this cure isn't legit despite the latest scans. However, the cure likely isn't the real issue here. All signs point to Grace faking the scans early on and pretending Liam was dying of a brain tumor, one that a fake surgery fixed for $1 million. According to the Bold and the Beautiful, Grace will eventually be held accountable for her deception, so stay tuned for updates on Finn's shocking news. Finn begins an investigation into Grace's deception. A secret that could shake the foundations of everyone's trust at the hospital is about to be revealed by John Finn Finnegan. As Finn grows increasingly suspicious of Grace Buckingham's involvement in Liam Spencer's sudden recovery, the Bold and the Beautiful sets up yet another thrilling twist. Finn is not convinced that Grace is a medical savior and that Liam's miraculous survival is being celebrated by others. Something about Grace's handling of the so-called experimental procedure isn't sitting right with him. And when it comes to the well-being of patients, especially someone like Liam who's closely connected to Steffi and Hope, Finn isn't about to let anything slide. Even though Grace Buckingham is just getting used to her new hospital office, she already appears to be under a lot of stress. She glances nervously at her phone, checking the bank app again. A $1 million wire transfer from Bill Spencer is confirmed on the screen. However, there is more to this transfer than just gratitude or compensation. It has a darker undertone. That money probably goes to someone Grace hasn't seen and who has been threatening her from the shadows. It's becoming increasingly clear that Grace is in a precarious situation that may be rooted in her past as the pressure builds. When Reese Buckingham, her ex-husband, left prison, he left behind a trail of destruction, including a significant debt. Grace may have inherited his financial burdens, and now someone wants that money paid in full. Grace receives messages from an unknown caller who appears to be obstinate and dangerous. Grace has every reason to be terrified, especially if her daughters, Paris and Zoe Buckingham, have been threatened. Grace chose the only option she could see because she felt trapped and worried about her daughter's safety. Deceive a billionaire, fabricate a diagnosis of a brain tumor, and get the money she needed to save her family. However, medical fraud cannot be justified by desperation. Grace's actions have crossed a serious line, even though she may have believed she was doing the right thing for the right reasons. While Bill Spencer, Liam, Steffi Forrester, and Hope Logan are thrilled about Liam's sudden turn for the better, Finn finds himself plagued with questions. The whole situation just seems too perfect and neat. How was it possible for a man with a brain tumor that couldn't be treated to survive a gunshot wound and recover completely from one enigmatic surgery? And more importantly, why did Grace handle everything in secrecy, shutting out other doctors and not providing any scientific documentation to back up her claims? Bill didn't respond to Finn's request for literature, statistics, or studies on the method she used. That's when alarm bells started going off in Finn's mind. Finn is a trained medical professional who is familiar with both miracles and fraud. Finn's gut tells him that something is very wrong, and he can't shake the suspicion that Grace fabricated everything. He therefore begins digging, as any responsible doctor would. Finn starts by reviewing Liam's medical files, pulling up every scan, every test result, and every note that Grace entered into the system. He can already tell that something feels off. The timelines are fuzzy. The scan images appear altered. Furthermore, Grace's surgical notes are merely a generic success report, with no mention of technique or breakdown of risk factors. It's not just disrespectful. It is very suspicious. Finn storms into Grace's office in search of answers, motivated by his instincts and a desire to safeguard those he loves. Grace is startled and tries to maintain her composure, but her nervous glances toward her phone give her away. Grace responds to Finn's accusation that she is concealing something by attempting to refocus on Liam's miraculous recovery. Isn't it sufficient that he is alive? She insists. That, however, is insufficient for Finn. Finn responds, not if the miracle was built on lies. Bridget Forrester, who has been working alongside Grace on other cases and is close to the situation, also begins to have doubts. She examines the data herself in private and finds it troubling. Bridget confronts Grace later and asks her to come clean, giving her a chance to explain herself before things go public. Bill Spencer, on the other hand, is still unaware that the $1 million surgery he paid for may have been a scam. Liam is too overjoyed by his recovery and the prospect of reconnecting with his daughters to consider that he may never have been sick in the first place. But that realization is coming, and it's going to be brutal. As Finn digs deeper, he begins tracing the wire transfer, using connections in the financial world and hospital administration. He discovers that the money wasn't deposited into a hospital research account or a charitable foundation. Instead, it was immediately deposited into Grace's personal account and transferred to a fake company's offshore account. That is the clincher that Finn requires. He presents this evidence to the leadership of the hospital as well as Ridge Forrester, who, in light of the recent chaos surrounding Steffi and Liam, has taken a renewed interest in the operations of the hospital. Ridge is furious and demands an internal audit. Finn also speaks to Paris and Zoe privately, trying to gauge whether they know anything about their mother's sudden windfall or if they've noticed her acting out of character. Paris admits that their mom has been acting strange, constantly checking her phone and seeming anxious about a family emergency she wouldn't elaborate on. Zoe, who has kept away from the drama for the past few months, is surprised when she finds out that Grace has been more involved in her life than usual, which now seems suspicious. Ultimately, Finn's investigation reaches a breaking point when he confronts Grace one final time, this time with evidence. Grace breaks down when she is given the financial records, the inconsistent timeline, and evidence that Liam never had a tumor. She admits everything, including the fabricated diagnosis, staged scans, and offshore payment. She explains how the unidentified threat connected to Reese's previous debt led her to make a bad decision. But Finn isn't moved. He recognizes the motivation, but he cannot justify the crime. He tells her that you manipulated a family's grief and played with a man's life. You don't get to hide behind fear. Everyone owes you the truth. The fallout is swift. Grace is suspended from the hospital and placed under investigation by the medical board. Bill is devastated to learn that he was conned, not just financially but emotionally, thinking he was giving his son another chance at life. Liam is left shaken and perplexed, not knowing what to make of it all or what it means for his future. Hope, Steffi, and even Ivy Forrester all respond in different ways, some with rage, some with disbelief. But for Finn, the result is bittersweet. He saved a patient, found a scam, and kept his family safe, but he also had to watch another doctor lose his way. As the dust settles, the bold and the beautiful promises more drama ahead. The Grace Buckingham scandal will ripple through the canvas, affecting every family and friendship. In addition, Finn, who is now a hero of a different kind, will be left to wonder if justice was really done or if this was just the beginning of another tangled mess in the world of high-stakes heartbreak and redemption.